Yeah, he's in there.
But he got it?
Yeah. Yeah, he's good. I what? Yeah. What? Yeah. It's it. To my girlfriend, Beyonce. Didn't hurt, but my wife hurt. That's now my friend. She's she our family barbecue, turkeys, and funerals. She's I can't say she was anti-Christ. No, our mom didn't let her, but she
I knew you was a team.
the last where I came to a party, and she come over there and she drank two our mom got mad at that she would
3 minutes.
so I know that she got hit well. Oh, so I never happens
3 minutes.
for I think.
Got 3 minutes before break, Coleman. 3 minutes before break. 3 minutes before break. 3 minutes before 9 o'clock session.
Yeah, whatever. Girl,
3 minutes before 9 o'clock session.
she's 18 now. 2 years ago, she my son was 18. She would bring her guys there. And she would go to the room. And block. I might have to get that. Brian, that's right. And I was like, what are you doing? That's right. College.
I missed it. You can make it strong.
Yeah. And he was nice, but he's yeah.
Same as oh. Making an artist.
Trying to sell some of this stuff.
Well, never give up.
All I need is for one of you gentlemen, one of you ladies over there, to purchase one of my paintings for like 1.2 million. Don't want a lot of money, not looking for a lot.
So, you know, I
Yeah.
got a friend of mine, a teacher in some place. Used to work in politics. Part time, he's got studio in New York. He's got done doing the show. People are,
Good.
but I think yours is probably the second best.
Oh, well. I appreciate that.
Anytime. I compliment
I don't think I'm going to give up my day job yet.
well,
Not just yet. But I'm going to tell you, you look at some of the greats, like all of those guys that they have down in the hallway down there from one to
oh,
those people couldn't paint with a flip. Those are horrible.
yeah.
They're just not good. You look at that, and somebody in the third grade could do better than that. And they paying $4 billion there.
But they didn't. That's very cool.
I can't see the attraction because they're just not good. And the old boy that did all that crazy stuff that makes people look funny and all of that kind of stuff, he was just a good con artist. He wasn't a good artist. He's a good, yeah. Picasso. I mean, he drew stuff that this is ridiculous. And he said, "Look, that's good, ain't it?" Somebody said, "Let me give you $2 million for it." There were people who were stupid back then too, but that's just my opinion. I can't. People look at it and say, "Man, I got to hang that in my house." It might scare away roaches and stuff if I hang that in my house. I like the guy that used to do all of the paint. What was his name? He did all of the paintings for the front of the magazine and stuff. This stuff was good. I mean, it was perfect. I mean,
yes. Was he one of the more famous ones?
I can't think of it. If I get it after a while, I'll tell you. But that's the kind of art I like. Because you can tell what it is. Somebody doesn't have to explain it to you. This is what it is. That's a girl. Don't look like a girl. Look like a lump. That's not art. Anyway. See, y'all got us late now. Let's get started. If you have, you have to bring your book to class. If you don't have your book in class, you're in the wrong class. Also, make sure that you get your sign-in sheets done, and I'll be over there after I'll pick it up from North Point. And I appreciate y'all doing that, making it so that I can understand it. and I can read it. There's someone in here that thinks it's really cool to write their first name and their last initial. Take me 30 minutes every time. I have to fill out everybody else before I can go back. And then if somebody put your name on there, it'll help. If you have this, look, we're about to get into the holidays, right? It's going to be Thanksgiving this week. Monday is my favorite day, but y'all do know that Thursday is Thanksgiving, right? Well, we're going to be eating some turkey and doing some other stuff around here, and we're going to just have a great time. I understand they're going to have a gobbling contest. A gobble contest. You don't know what a gobbling contest? Okay, you've led a sheltered life. I can see that. So we're going to gobble two different types of gobbling. We're going to have a contest on who can gobble the best, like a turkey, gobble, gobble. And then the next one is how much food you can gobble, at one time. So we're going to do those things. Probably not. But if that happens, it'd be all right. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about our family health, and what we have up here on the board is what? Family. Yeah, this is family relationships, and the reason I drew this, I want you to notice something about the board up here. These guys don't really look alike, do they? They don't. We got this little guy over here that we're not really sure, but he is a little dumpy over here in the corner. We don't know what's going on with there. And then we got the blue guy and the black guy and the red guy. So we don't know, that these guys are family or they have a relationship with one another. So what that tells us is that families don't always have to look exactly alike, do they? No, they don't. But
so they look like two pieces.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they are. I never know. I just draw them. It's not my business what they are. I don't know. Of course, neither one of them have an Adam's apple. Maybe they're both female types. I'm not sure. They make them. Well, that's another part of the family that's hidden. Now that's a guy, okay? So I don't know who the person behind him is about to slap him behind the head or something. I don't know what's going on there. But here's a lot of the things. Our addiction will do things to our family, won't it? And we've talked about this a couple of times before when we said, hey, this is not just about me. This thing goes way beyond me. It's about my family, my immediate family, my extended family, my friends, all of those people who are around me. So this isn't, and it never can be just about me. So usually, not all the time, see, different things happen to different people, doesn't it? So I have seen people go through addiction and get into recovery and all of that kind of stuff, and their family be right there supporting them, helping them, and all of that stuff all the way through it. And then I've seen people who have an issue, and immediately their family throws them out the house. Immediately they're done. So what happens then is, if you have your book, when we're looking at the first stage, and we're gonna slip through a couple of these stages because I'm not sure what we're doing Thursday. I don't know if we're gonna have a group in here Thursday. I'm not gonna be here, so not really sure what's gonna happen there. But what happens in addiction sometimes in our situations that we get ourselves in, we get to a place where we're estranged. What does that word estranged mean? Not a part of. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, when I'm estranged, that means I'm not a part of that anymore. And can you ever be completely not a part of your family? No, you're always going to be a part of that family. There's people in my family I'm not really excited about the fact that they're part of my family, but they are. And I know that there's a lot of people in my family also that's not excited about the fact that I'm part of their family. So we're kind of estranged from one another. We're not part of the things when we go to have a meeting or something like that. We have a group and stuff like that with the family. I'm not always invited, and they're not always invited. So that means that we're a little bit estranged. Oh, you're gonna stop? All
Yes,
right.
sir.
That's a real
I seen
good.
the look.
That's a real good plan. So here's estranged means you have multiple family estrangements. There's multiple reasons that you're not there with your family anymore. And you have some broken relationships that may be in various stages of turmoil. That's a pretty bad situation with your family. You're actively avoiding or in direct conflict with more than one family member, trusted friend, or partner. So, wait a minute. That off, that upside down. So, you know, if we get through the estrangement place, through that stage, we got some real situations going on with our family. And, you know, that's real sad, isn't it? Down through the years that I've been involved in this mess, I've seen so much family mess. You know, when somebody passes away, everybody gets at everybody's throat, right? My plan is in my own family, you know, I'm 72, I'm getting on up there a little bit. I plan to live to about 102, 103, something like that. But when I start feeling like I'm about to slip away, you know, when I feel the angel of death nipping at my toes, you know, I'm going to have a grand and great garage sale. I'm selling everything. You know, so there's nothing left. There's no land, there's no guns, there's no cars, there's nothing. And then I'm going to go sit on the side of the road and wait to die. That'll be good for my family, right? No, that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing, though, is that my family already knows who gets what. We have I haven't done it yet, but I'm doing a will. But I've already talked to the kids. Everybody knows. I have not a grandson. I have a son-in-law who collects guns. He probably has 200, and I have probably 20. So when I pass away, he's gonna fall heir to all of my weapons. All of them's gonna go to Alan, except for one. What's going on? Would y'all like to share that with it? No? Want to keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. There's something going on out there. There's a squirrel or a snowflake or something, and we've seen it, and it has captured us. So secondly, you know, if we get past that place where we're estranged and all of that stuff, if we're still having issues, but we're getting better, then we're going to go to the second stage, which is there. And we're going to look at the second stage really quickly. And why is that? Because we're not going to be here Thursday. We're going to do something. We're going to be here, but we're not going to do this group Thursday. So let's look at that real quickly. And that's when we move to that second stage, it's still a bit insecure. What does that mean?
Not sure, bro.
Yeah, I just don't know. Yeah, I'm just not sure about my family. I don't know if they love me. I don't know if they'll put up with me. I don't know if they want me around them. And quite frankly, I don't know if I want to be around them either. You know, and I am still, years and years and years and years later, I'm still practicing not going around on people, places, and things. So there's some of my family that's most of the time I did what's called a geographical escape. And I'm sure everybody knows what that is. I left Mississippi and came to Texas. You know, got away from my family.
Yeah, addicts in your family?
Say it again.
Yeah, addicts.
Just a couple thousand, just about, you know, yeah. My dad was an addict, my mom was an addict, my brother was an addict, my sister was an addict, but she's dead, so that makes her a dead addict. And, yeah, and all of my friends and family and everybody, so left them there and came to here to get away from that stuff, but still there's family members and folks over there that I don't go around with. And I will tell you something. I've had people tell me, I don't know how you live without your family. Pretty well. Pretty well. And if I went back and got involved with my family again, it wouldn't be so well. Because they don't understand not drinking. They don't understand that. They make their own booze and they drink and they get high and they go, they do all this stuff. They don't understand being sober. Sober to them is something that's foreign and different. And so they want to help me because they love me. And so when I get back around them, the very first thing they want to do is help me get back to being high or drunk or something. I got a cousin over there that makes his own brandy. He makes wine. He makes all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? And you go in his back room and it's just, like a liquor store in there. And the first thing he'll say to you is, I know you don't drink no more. But look here, if you want, I made that myself now. If you want to try a little bit of it, you don't have to get drunk. Nothing like that there. I ain't talking about that. But if you just want to taste it to see how good the wine is that I made, you can do that. And then when you say, you just told me, I don't drink. Now, I don't touch the stuff. I don't want to even hold the bottle and see how well the bottle's balanced. You know what I'm saying? Then he gets his feelings hurt. Right? His feelings hurt because deep down inside he wants to destroy my life. Because he don't want me to be sober. Stupidity, you've heard the old saying, misery loves company. That's true. So does stupidity. He loves it. I love you, man. I love you. You tell me that all the time. So you move to that place of insecurity, and that means you've maintained many, if not a lot, or if not most of your family relationships, but some or all are in a state of insecurity. I don't know if I want to fool with that person. I don't want to fool with that person. Don't know if that person wants to fool with me. Others see it, or others see a need for change. However, past actions or conflicts have damaged the relationship stability. How many people have done something to their family? Yeah, I've done some stuff. There was some stuff in my house that I thought I needed because there was some other stuff outside my house that I knew I needed. And so I took the stuff that was in my house, which was not my stuff, and took it somewhere and got rid of it. So to get the stuff anyway, y'all know how that goes, right? All right, so look, here's the deal. How do we know if we want to rekindle some of those relationships or not? Go back and talk to them and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I would do? The very first thing I would do is go somewhere, sit down by myself and think about it. I think real strong about it. Here's the deal. Thanksgiving's coming. Thursday's Thanksgiving. I'm going to be eating some turkey. I'm going to eat some turkey. I'm going to eat some other stuff. We're not going to have the dressing and all of that kind of stuff that we usually have. We're not going to have our family. It's just going to be myself, my wife, and our youngest son. And it's just going to be the three of us and the dog. So I guess that's 4. But there's dozens of those people. I'm still going to have turkey. I'm still going to enjoy myself, whether those people are part of my celebration or not. I've had so many people, I don't know how to live without this person. And yes, that's called codependence, and that's a disease in itself. And you need to get out of that disease and move on. So if we're codependent, that's not a good thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about codependence maybe tomorrow. But not today. We're not going to do it today. We're going to talk about codependence tomorrow. Because some people, if you can't live without that person, what are you? Codependent. And we don't want to be codependent. It's okay to be dependent, but not codependent, right? We'll talk about it tomorrow. All right. So here's some of the things. These are relationship, and look, this means relationship with some other people, or relationship with family members, or relationships with your buddy, friends, partner, whoever. This is about those types of relationships. So we're going to look at about 12 different things, and y'all know that that's going to take us maybe most of the day, and we'll do it anyway. We'll get it done. Every relationship, and we need to know this, every relationship is unique. What does that mean?
One more time.
Yeah, one of a kind. Your relationship is not like my relationship. Your relationship with the people in your life is not like my relationship with the people in my life, or like the relationship with most people in his life. It's just not the same. We all have different relationships. For example, the way one couple expresses appreciation may be a whole lot different from how somebody else does. How do you express appreciation? Yeah, some of us may do it a little bit different than other people. Healthy relationships tend to be alike, though, in a whole lot of ways. They do tend to be similar in a whole lot of ways, and those we're going to look at. The relationship green flags. This is a green flag. What does a green flag mean? Go, man! Everybody in here knew that. I knew y'all were smart. Look at that. Yeah. Green means go. So if you have some of these green flags in your relationship, then hey, we can head off in that direction, right? So if there's some of the people in your life that are green flags to you, then you need to go back and rekindle that relationship. Can your mom be a green flag in your life? Sure, absolutely. Why not? Can she be a red flag in your life? Sure, absolutely. Why not? So so we need to know those things. Here's some of the things that are green flags. These are some of the things it's going to tell you to take on off in that direction, keep and head out in that direction. And one of them is appreciation. If I don't appreciate the person, I've been married for 52 years. I tell y'all that all the time because that's a big deal. And I appreciate a lot of the stuff that my wife does for me. She does some fantastic things for me. Takes care of all the money in my whole life. I go out and work like a dog and come in here and get unappreciated, everything, and then get paid just a little bit of money. I take it, it goes straight to the bank because my wife and my boss are in cahoots, and my money goes straight to the bank, and then my wife takes. And so she's doing that for me. She ain't gonna let that money sit in the bank and get old. So she's taking care of that for me. But this, and she usually cooks these big old fabulous, but she's not doing it this year. So it's gonna be harder to appreciate her this year. But I'm gonna do it. Look, appreciation. This means that you respect and value your spouse, partner, and you express gratitude to that person often. You appreciate what they're doing in your life. Here's the deal. I'm a pastor as well as doing this, and I have kids come to tell me, we love one another. I love him. I just love her. I can't stand that. Well, the deal is, love that means your pheromones have been stirred up a little bit, and if that girl or if that guy goes away, then before you know it, your pheromones will get stirred up again. You're in love again. Love is a mini splendored up thing, right? It's going to come more and more and more. But here's the thing. If you respect that person, if you value that person, that's different from love. Because love is hyped up lust most of the time. Most of the time. It is. Most of the time. So if you don't respect that person, okay, you don't really love that person. You're lusting that person, perhaps, but you don't really have that I'm going to give her or give him a whole entire life. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hang out with them long enough to have some good times and have some sex and do this and that and the other, and then we're going to split up and go off because I don't respect that person. I just want to be with that. That's not love. That's love. So if that's appreciation, when I respect that person, and if I respect a person, I'm going to express my gratitude to that person. Everybody have somebody in their life right now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Maybe. So what do you do to show that person that you respect them?
Gratitude.
One of the biggest things that what's the number one biggest thing that causes divorce? Money, he said money. What else?
Weddings.
What?
Weddings.
Weddings, yeah, marriage. If you get married, there may be one, yeah. Yeah. So the big one, the very number one is communication. So if I don't respect a person, do I necessarily want to talk to that person? No. You know, when I'm sitting at the house, I'm tired. I've worked all day, and I go home and I sit down, and what does my wife do? Cut the TV off. Every time I tell her the same thing. What I tell her? I'm watching that. She said, well, it was I don't care. That's my favoriteest, most favoriteest, bestest commercial that I've ever seen. And I've only seen it 300 times, and this was a record 301, and you cut it off. But we're going to talk for a while. How often does a couple communicate? How often do they talk? How many minutes do they talk over a week's period? 7 days. Yeah, average on 7 days. An hour, you said? Well, that's not much, huh? So anybody else a different? Usually, if you've got a couple that's married or living together or whatever, over a 7 day period of time, they communicate about 15 minutes in 7 days. About average is 15 minutes. Yeah. So I'm going to work, honey. Went out the door, coming back, eating supper, watching television, going to bed. So just one-on-one conversation averages 15 minutes a week. And when, we're in marriage counseling and the lady says, hey, don't talk to me. She's serious about it. We don't talk, and neither it goes both ways. Neither one of us talk. Somebody got to be the first one to cut the television off, right? And then you have to wait for 15, 20 minutes of withdrawal to get back. When the flashing light is not in my face. And then you can talk. So we need to do that. My wife and I will take about 30 minutes to an hour to talk at night. We used to get up in the morning and do that as well. But I get up at 4 and leave about 6. She gets up, I don't know when because I'm not there. So if you value your partner and if you respect that person, you're going to talk to that person because we care what they have to say, right? I care what that person has to say. So if there's a family member that I'm a little bit estranged from, then if I want to, if I want to get back in contact with that person, it has to be somebody that I have some respect for, right? Because I'm going to have to communicate with that person. What's the one big red flag that I'm not going to go, even if I respect that person, love that person, want to get back with that person, what's that one big red flag that's going to keep me from doing that? Yeah, like my cousin, if they're making their own booze, you don't need to be going back around there. If they're heavily using, you don't need to be going around that person. I'm going to tell you what, if that person is just a social drinker, but they'll drink around you, I don't need to go around that person either because I'm supposed to be respecting them. Are they supposed to be respecting me back? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And here's the deal. Do you know you can eat turkey without having beer or wine or booze with it? Yeah. It tastes better. Yes, it does. All right, here's the deal. If I've got somebody in my life that I want to remain in my life in the family relationships or in my other than family relationships, then I need to be willing to commit to that person. I need to make a commitment to that. I need to make a commitment that is longer than the 15 minutes it's going to take me to do the things I really want to do. I need to be willing to be there for a period of time. So yeah, you are invested in your partner and you're invested in the relationship. That's what commitment means. I had a fella tell me, and this was a long time ago, but he was telling me that uh, he was involved with 7 different ladies right now. Right? He said, I'm involved with 7 different. Okay, all right. You know, okay. Yeah, I don't know that they know each other, but if they do, that's a storm that's about to happen. You know. So if you are, look, I'm going to tell you how many people know that friendship is really exhausting. Anybody here have a friend that if they called you right now that you'll go to their house?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people have friends that if they wanted your car, you come get it?
Oh, no.
Yeah. You know how many people have friends that if you wanted their car? Yeah. Yeah. I have some friends like that. That takes commitment. That takes somebody putting some work into a relationship. And that's why when we talk about, we do an assessment in here and we say, how many friends do you have? How many, people's in your life on that level? And most people say 0 to 2 because it's hard work to maintain a friendship. And so the same thing with a relationship, same thing with family. It takes a commitment. You're invested in that partner, you're invested in that family member, and you're invested in that relationship. If I'm invested, that means I have to work for it, right? I have to work on that relationship. If I'm not willing to work on the relationship, I don't need to start that relationship, right? I don't need to begin a relationship that I'm not willing to work on. So you give the relation adequate time and adequate energy. So if I'm giving my relationship adequate time and adequate energy, that means that I'm talking to my spouse. It means I'm talking to my partner. I'm talking to my friend. I'm talking to my mommy. I'm talking to my brother or my sister, whoever I've made that commitment to have a relationship with. I'm having a relationship with that person, right? And that we always have to look at that one thing. Are they using? Will they help me get back to my place of addiction? Will they help me get back into my addicted lifestyle? If they're going to help me do that, then I don't want a relationship with that person. And look, sometimes it's hard, but let me share this. It doesn't make any difference what that person's title is. That person's my brother. I don't need to have a relationship with my brother if that person's going to lead me back out of my recovery. If that person, and I know it's hard, but if that person's my mommy, I don't need to have a relationship with that person if she's a crack addict, right? No. Are some mommies crack addicts? Yeah, they are. Now, they may be none of ours in here, but there are out there, those folks. So we need to make the commitment, but we need to make the commitment to the right people. All right, so one of the green flags that we have is conflict resolution. What does conflict resolution mean?
Yes.
De-escalating it. Yeah, if I have some kind of conflict in our lives, something. Look, if you have a relationship with somebody, the chances of something going askew, something happening, something going poo-poo is pretty high, isn't it? Yeah, you're going to accidentally step on her or his dog. You're going to do something. You're going to say something nasty about somebody else's children. You're going to do something that's going to offend or hurt the other person's feelings. And so we need to be willing to do some conflict resolution. First off, we need to be willing to understand that there is a resolution to every conflict. Right? So you take responsibility. Here's how we do that. Here's how we do conflict resolution. You take responsibility for your actions. Is it always the other person's fault? Usually it is in my life, but no. It's not always the other person's fault, right? I'm going to take responsibility for my actions, no matter what the other person's actions are, no matter what they did, no matter what they said. I did something. Yeah, I did. Is there a possibility that they may say or do something and you not have any part in it? Sure. There's always that outlier. There's always that outlier. But usually when somebody comes up and says something to you that's a little bit out of the way, what are we going to do? We're going to respond. I'm going to say something back, right? And so before you know it, it's going back and forth, and we're having some conflict in our relationship, conflict with our brothers, conflict with our mommies, conflict with our dads, conflict with whoever, our friends, our family. We're going to have some conflict. So the very first thing when it comes to conflict resolution is I have to be willing to say, yes, I did that. I have to take responsibility for my own actions. So, and then work as a team to solve those problems. You know, when we became a couple or when we became a family, we decided we're going to be a team. And a team does what? We work together to win. That's what a team does. And if you're with someone else and you're really a team, then you can work together to win. That's what a baseball team does. That's what a football team does. Well, not so much those people, but you know, they work together to win. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that because Cowboys do work together to win, and sometimes they beat the Indians, and sometimes they don't. You know. So yeah, Cowboys do. So we do need to know that conflict is going to happen, and it doesn't necessarily absolutely have to happen, but the chances of it happening are pretty high, right? The chances of you staying with a person for your whole life and never having any conflict pretty small, aren't they? Almost is thinking about it, almost imperceptible. You know, it's not going to probably. If you're going to stay with that person more than a few weeks, then something's going to probably happen. And then one of the other things that we have to have, if I'm going to get my family back together, if I'm going to get my spouse back together, if I'm going to do things that are going to work the right way, then I'm going to have to operate in empathy. So empathy is what? Well, you take your partner's perspective, understand their feelings, even if you don't always agree about it with it, right? You don't have to agree to empathize, right? And look, I have taken my wife's side on a lot of stuff, and I haven't really totally agreed with the way that she was thinking at that point in time. You know, there was a time in our life when she was growing up, she wanted a horse really badly. We were married probably 3 weeks before she bought her first horse. She just had to have a horse. Okay, got her a horse. Down through the years, we've had bunches of horses. We raised Overo paints for a while. But then, we sold them. We saw them as we got older. We had a little Overo paint, didn't have a lot of paint in it, and she finally gave that thing away to a girl. And we haven't had one since. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I had to say, okay, look, I empathize with her. She wanted a horse. Her mom was dead set against that because horses are dangerous and all of that kind of stuff. And so Linda got a horse, and then she got several more. And down through the years, she proved to her mother that horses weren't dangerous. But I had a horse kick me right here. Then I had another horse buck me off and break 5 of my ribs. Then I had a horse bite me. So horses may not be dangerous to her, but they did me some little bit of dirt down through the years. Man, Yeah.
Blessed to be alive.
Yeah, I got on the horse and I said, "Well, I'll ride this horse," and the horse said, "No, he ain't." So anyway, so he gave me home. Take your partner's perspective. What we do is when my partner says, "Hey, this is what I want to do," then what you do is listen to it, try to understand why they feel that way, and then if you still disagree with it, what? You can agree to disagree, and then you can talk about it a little bit. Maybe if they're empathetic to you as well, which they should be, then that'll all change. I had made this happened yesterday. I had made a plan to go back to um, Alabama in October, and my wife just flat refused. I'm not going back over. Not this year, maybe next year, but maybe we'll go every other year. Okay, because there is a part of my family have another cousin in Alabama that I visit, and so we were going, but she didn't want to do it, so we're being empathetic, even if you don't agree. Because I can see her point. We don't want to go there every time we go somewhere, right? So, okay, we're going to go somewhere else. We're going to Kerrville instead. So this is a big deal. Independence. This is where codependence comes in. Because when I'm codependent, and if you die, I'm going to die too. It's like that. But if your partner dies, does that mean you're going to automatically croak as well? No. We need, but look, people have. When somebody dies, they kill themselves or something else. I went to a guy's house one time, and there's a big old cemetery. He lived right across the street from a big old cemetery. I'm sitting on his front porch, and his view was a bunch of dead people. I didn't like where he lived. Nice house, but I didn't like where he lived. And there's a guy sitting in a lawn chair out there by grave. I said, "That's weird." He said, "Oh, wait, that's his wife's grave." I said, "Oh, well, that's kind of romantic." He said, "Not really. He's been doing that for about 2 years now." I said, "Well, yeah." So he was codependent. This lady had passed away. He couldn't deal with it. So the rest of his life, he's sitting in the graveyard, sitting next to his dead wife, sitting in the graveyard. Okay, that's not much of a life. That's codependent to the ilk. That's crazy. That's not good. So if you're with someone, you have the right, correct dependence on that person. Then when that person dies, you spend some time grieving that person. And if you go past the 5 stages of grief, then you get into complicated grief, and you might need to come see somebody about complicated grief, but you need to at some point get past it, right? So we need to have some independence. Am I dependent on my wife? Absolutely. Is she dependent on me? Absolutely. But are we codependent on one another? No. Independence means you have your own interests, you have your own goals, separate from those of your partner. My wife and I do most things together. We've been married all these years. We do most things together. But probably Friday, maybe it was one Friday, might have been Wednesday last week, something like that. She has a friend named Barbara. They go do stuff together. I have no idea what they do. It's a couple of ladies. They go off. They do something. They go out to eat, and they go shopping, and they do all of this kind of stuff together. And that's what they do, right? And there are times when I have some land. I go off on my land by myself, and my wife, she has no interest in that whatsoever. So, we do have that bit of independence there, and we need to have some of that, because here's the deal. One of the things that we need to get built into ourselves is that no matter how long you've been in the relationship, you don't own that other person. You might be married to them, or you might be with them a long time or whatever, but you might have bought a marriage license, but you don't own that person. So, they don't. Say it again?
I wish a narcissistic person out there.
Yeah. There's some narcissistic people out there that believe that they do own the other person and they want you to be codependent with them, but that's not how it works. You don't own that person, and if that person says, hey, I don't want to be with you anymore, guess what happens? They get to leave. They get to go. And there ain't a whole lot you can do about it, right? They get to go. That's the way that is. Now, I don't agree with that. I think, look, if I had to be married for 52 years, so do you. Right? Well, I told them yesterday at church, I've been married for 52 years, and it's 15 years, the best years of my life. 15 of the best. Y'all get it? That was a joke.
52.
Yeah, my wife don't like that either. So, independence. We need to be able to let that person do some of the things that person wants to do, right? Without me. So, safety. Safety is another green flag. If I can be safe with that person, then I can have a relationship with that person. Anybody ever meet any batterers? You know what a batterer is? Yeah. That's somebody going to beat up on somebody else. And usually it's a stronger person beating up on a weaker person. I have dealt with, I've done some of that back in the day. And, hey, that's just not a good place to be. If I can't be safe with you, I'm not going to be with you. When my daughter and her husband got married about 35 years ago, that's the first thing I explained to him. You don't know what battering is until you put your hand on my daughter. I become the batterer. Bubba. Now, we ain't doing none of that. We're not going to do that. So, being safe, we respect my spouse's boundaries. That's sometimes we don't like that idea, but my wife has boundaries. They are hers. I respect those boundaries. I'm not going to go past her boundaries, right? Somebody say, right, keep going. Yeah, and those boundaries have to be established, and they have to be, I need to understand your boundaries, you need to understand my boundaries. We talked about this a couple of times, but if I have porous boundaries, that means that just anybody can get it. If I have weak boundaries, I'm going to do anything, say anything, let people run over me. But if I have strong boundaries, then you're going to understand it. You don't go past it. Anybody ever had to deal with a close talker? A close talker? My grandson, my grandson's a close talker to get like this close to you. We don't do that. My grandson's about headed for 30. And I was cooking some eggs or something one day, which is about all I ever do cook. And I was going to ask him something. I turned around. He's right there. Right there. Oh my God, get out of my face. One of my boundaries is, look, I have about a 2-foot sphere that I live in. Don't come close. Don't come through that. Don't come through. I've had folks in here want to come and look. My friend, he and I both. There's been times he and I have done a little hugging. But look, if you're not invited in my sphere, don't come. I don't know you like that, Some people I do know like that, but I don't know everybody like that. So we respect our partner's boundaries. And here's the big deal. You feel safe physically. If you don't feel safe physically, you should not be in that relationship. There is no way on the earth that you should be in a relationship that you go home at night, you don't know whether or not you're going to get whooped. That's not a relationship, that's prison. Don't do that. So you got to feel safe first physically, and then you need to feel safe intellectually. What does that mean? I get to tell you my ideas. You don't have to like all of my ideas, but I get to express them without any fear of you jumping on me about them. A safety. Express my own thoughts. And I need to be safe emotionally. That means I need to express my feelings. I need to feel safe about expressing my feelings. I can tell you when you hurt my feelings. I can tell my wife, that hurt my feelings. Yeah, and she can do the same thing with me, right? I need to be safe. And look, if you are one of those people over at the ladies' place and here, because not only are men batterers, there are women batterers as well. And so here's the deal. If you're one of those people who calls somebody else not to feel safe, physically, intellectually, or emotionally, you don't need to be in a relationship with anybody until you can figure that out because you're emotionally unstable yourself. So you need to figure that out before you try to get somebody else involved in your with you as in a relationship. Because you got no right putting your hands on anybody that way. Well, that's a good question. I want to tell you this. The question was, what if they put their hands on you first? That's a good question, isn't it? Should you be able to protect yourself? Can you defend yourself? I'm going to defend myself, but then I'm not going to be any more part of that relationship. If you're still in that relationship and you have to defend yourself, they keep putting their hands on you, something ain't right. Because you're enjoying getting your butt whipped.
Yeah, what if what if they like do that?
I'm sorry?
I'm being serious. What if like I'm just gonna be real. I just come out of a relationship where she would hit me and I would literally attack her. Get, come on. And because I don't know why I did it, but I continued to do it. I mean, that's all you got, and let her hit me again. I don't know why, but it was
well,
at the time.
We could talk about the whys on that, but in a relationship like that, I would not stay in a relationship. That's not a safe. That's not a good. That's not a healthy relationship. I'm not going to put my hands on another person, and I don't expect another person to put their hands on me. Right? We're not going to do that. And look, I'm not telling you I won't defend myself. I will. I'm not going to defend myself against my wife. We've been married 52 years, and neither one of us have ever put our hands on the other one. And if you're in a relationship where one of you is putting your hands in violence on the other, you need to be out of that relationship. And you need to build another relationship that's totally, completely different than that. Look, it's not a healthy relationship where the person is hitting you or you're hitting them. That's not a good relationship. If you want to go be a boxer, go be an MMA, go do something like that. Good, God Almighty. And I have told those guys back when we were doing this, there's not a whole lot of respect for a batter, is there? No, you want to fight, come see me. I'm a full-grown man. I can take care of myself. Don't beat on your wife. Come see me. I'm right here. Let's do this thing. But same thing, if you're a lady, I had a lady who her husband was a whole lot smaller than her, and she beat on him all the time. And he had to be rescued out of that situation. In the United States of America, thousands of women are killed every year by the men who love them. Yeah.
It's the opposite.
The opposite happens too, but the number is much, much lower. It's between 20 and 40 men die every year at the hand of the women who love them. So it happens both ways, but it is far and beyond men are battering women. And so we should do that. That's not a relationship. That's codependency and that's ignorance. We don't need to be in that, and we need to get out of that. So safety. I need to be safe. If you think you might not be safe in that area, and I want to push you off because you said a really intelligent thing. This thing about go ahead, hit me again. That's not the smartest thing. But when you said I've gotten out of that relationship, that's the thing to do. If that person feels like they are justified in putting their hands on you in a violent way, you don't need to be in that relationship. Whether it's man on woman or woman on man. You're not supposed to be doing it. Right? That's not. If anybody has any doubt at all, let me say it one more time. That's not a healthy relationship. Shouldn't be able to do that. You should be able to do what we were talking about up here, having some empathy, sit down, talk about these things, and talk your way. If you cannot do that, you need to figure a little something else out. If you look, if your last 4 relationships have been that way, you need to get into some therapy because something's happening. You are picking that type of person, or you are building that type of person. Either you're picking somebody for your relationship, you already know they're a bad. Or when you get into the relationship, you are pushing them to the point where you're turning them into that. So if you are in, the last 4 relationships were battered and all of that kind of stuff, there's something right there. So you need to get some help. So, we got a few more minutes. The next thing is balance. And if we have a green light on balance, that's a good thing. That means that, I'm going to spend some time with you. Right? We're going to spend some time together, but we're also going to spend some time apart. I don't have to be with you all the time. Every 3 months or so, my wife and I go to a dinner theater. We go to Deer Park, Texas, and go to a dinner theater. We have a dinner, and then we have a play, and it's usually fairly good. Sometimes it's not so good, but the food is always great, and the play, sometimes. But we do that. But other times, my wife is going early December. She and some of her girlfriends are going to a ministry retreat. It's just for women. So, okay. They're going to be gone 2 or 3 days. A few years ago, she and the ladies went to hear a lady named Joyce Myers in New Orleans. They went to New Orleans to listen to Joyce Myers. And, so she does some things that I don't necessarily have to be a part of. And I do some things that she does. We do some things together, but we do some things apart as well. So it's a balance. You find happiness and time spent together and apart. That's another thing that's kicking the codependency thing in the teeth. Some needs are met outside the relationships. Now listen. Y'all got to get a hold of that. Make sure you know what we mean by that, because some needs are met outside the relationship. That doesn't mean romantic needs, right? That doesn't mean you go sleeping around. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about friendships who have the same hobbies and stuff like that. A lot of guys go fishing. Yeah, I love to go fishing. I don't fish. Yeah, I would fish. I would go fishing, but I'm afraid I might catch something. Yeah, if you catch it, you got to clean it, and then if you catch it, you got to eat it. So if I don't know. So I asked my wife yesterday. Actually, we're coming home. Our church is in West Orange, and there's just water everywhere, and there's guys fishing. And I said, if I go over there and go fishing, would you cook it? She said, no. So So be able to do some things alone, apart from one another. You don't have to be stuck under each other's arms all the time. Right? Don't have to do that. One of the things that we need to do as a couple is practice interdigitation. Anybody here practice interdigitation? Interdigitation. But if you take your hands, if you hold hands, this is holding hands, right? And if you're holding hands like that, it's really easy to pull you apart. But this is interdigitation, where you walk with your partner with your fingers interlocked like that. You can't pull. You cannot pull two people apart if they don't want to be pulled apart if they're interdigitated. So, that's how you... And you learned a new word and all of that kind of stuff. So look, it's close enough. We'll get back in here at 15 after and we'll finish this thing up. Thank you, folks.
But you run to hold on. I have too many things going on. I'm just messing with you guys. Nick stole something. Nick, you'll see. Y'all said that I was Shane. Shame on you. Let's say no more. Shame on you. Gotta say more. See? Change. That doesn't almost. Chain of blue. So when can I give you a call? A session? Never. Wow. Let me learn my Phyllis cases. That I can't get in for a doggone session. See, I treat black people like we don't need counseling.
Anytime, Mark. Anytime. Sorry, I'm greedy. No, I'm
Man. Attitude. Change, 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 change.
Hey, I just told you guys, not allowed to walk.
That's interesting. See, one, two, first.
Oh, and P.S. Kevin had to walk back from the hospital tonight, so I don't know. I'll have AOD, right?
We,
Uh,
first,
so we have AOD.
Coming back in.
I'll find it.
Hello.
No.
I'm just saying.
But that was watching my
You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, you said, but no, I don't like the fact. So I understand. I don't like. Why don't you like this? I can stop. She's like, she started here. Yeah. It doesn't look good.
It just,
It is. We're not going to, we're not going to want it. Or somebody. But the wall, but she has said something. But said something about that. I had brought it to ladies' attention. But she said she was fine with it. Now she turned around and now she's not fine. Yeah, that's true. I guess. So they know what I was one of the first. What's up? What about they volunteer in our foot? That's not good. They all they don't want to drink energy drink, they drink orange drink. Fully in that. I think they think about. I think what they think of, and I'm not. I'm just trying to explain them. I know. I think this is about triggers. See what might be in the legs, but you don't think them baby in our face. No, that ain't true. I would say so. I would say so. I would say so. So that's like a flat bite. I don't make good. Especially I know that was sometimes I'll be like, God damn. The thought of this shit right now, I was like, whoa, bro.
Yeah, anytime.
I'm done that before that. Move burn me with a
That's the first place you go.
down with two pillows.
What they burn you with?
But listen, I was in college, man. A roommate, well, actually, oh boy. So we sitting in the board one, and he turned me on to make me better stuff too. So we sitting in the college dorm. Okay. So we doing our thing, and so I kept scratching like that. Thought something was biting. I'm Zoom. I can't tell what's going on. And then finally he started, yeah, he started leaving on them. I was not the dude. I didn't know, I don't have a plan. I was totally different. When I realized what he was doing, boy, I knew it, man. I elbow, not on the two. What? Wow! Man, crazy. I got not. I smoked his ass.
Man, what happened?
So
You got it in your life?
and
Oh.
he thought that shit like that. He thought that shit was funny. And before I knew it, I elbowed him in the door. I thought, you started mama. I just got up and fucking I got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's the
That's my first lead.
Yeah.
Remember that? Remember that? No? Maybe not?
I don't remember anything. I never met me.
It's okay. You want to play again?
Sure.
I'll play again.
No. Hold on. Check it.
Let's see. Well, that's okay. Not a big check. Yes.
No.
Yes.
All right. Let's gather. All righty then. Yes.
Group time, group time. Group time, group time. Group time, group time. Group time. Let's go, guys. Group time, group time.
All right, we're going to get started again. I know you ladies are going to play. We're going to continue in the same vein. We'll get this done here pretty quickly. We only have a few more, and when we may quit a little early because here's the deal. We talked about balance. We need to be able to find some stuff outside the relationship to fulfill some of those needs in our lives that, as we were talking about, are not romantic in nature. So one of the other things is, in a relationship that's going to work really well, we need to have some commonality. What's commonality? Things in common. I need to be, I need to have some things in common. I had and not saying which side of the spectrum anybody's on, don't care, don't want to talk about it, but I have a fella in our church who is a staunch conservative, and his wife is a staunch liberal. So they disagree on almost everything. So how do they have a harmonious relationship? They don't. They don't. They're always at odds on just about everything. We've done about 2 years worth of marriage counseling, and still it's hard. We need to have some commonality. What do I have in common with that person? If I don't have anything in common with that person, if the only thing that attracts me to that person are my pheromones getting stirred up, if I just think, well, that's the most cutest, best looking thing I've ever seen in my life, and they even smell good, but they completely opposite of everything that I have in my life, is that going to make for a good relationship? Probably not. I know a lady who does well. She wanted children, but she had gotten married a little bit late in her life. She was like 35, but she wanted children, and her husband, the guy that she married, was nearly 50. And he'd already had children. This was his like fourth marriage or something. And he'd already had all the kids, and he didn't want to do that anymore. And so, but they fell in love, and they got married off, and they wound up having kids. But it's been a thorn of contention with them ever since. So you have to have some commonality. You share. We need to be able to share important. Get a hold of that. We need to share important goals, important beliefs, and important values with your partner. What does that tell us? There can be some unimportant things that we don't have to share. There's some unimportant things out there that's in part of our relationship. My wife is if she's going to drive a vehicle, it's going to be a Ford F-150 pickup truck that's red. Okay. I like Fords too, but I will tell you this, that the Ford F-150 right now is a piece of junk, trash, garbage up. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Just like all
terrible.
Fords.
Yes.
First on right there.
That's why I'm saying the road.
Found on the road there.
But they already give the back we go get an hour now. That way you walk home and be lonely.
And do it backwards, the drivers turn.
I happen to believe that you can get a limit in anything you buy. You get a limit. The reason I don't like her new truck is it has so much technology in it. It will drive itself. If you take your hands off the steering wheel, it'll go around the curves. It has cameras on each side of it. And as long as the road has a white line on either side of it, it's going to stay within that white line no matter where it goes. But it wants you to keep your hands on the wheel, so when you don't have your hands on the wheel, it'll go toot-toot, 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 making you want to put your hands on it. When it starts to rain, the windshield wipers come on automatically, and if it gets harder, they go faster. It does all of these kinds of things. When you pull up to a stop sign, it goes, the car quits, and then when you hit the gas again, it'll start back up. But the air conditioner and all of that stuff keeps working. It has two different battery systems. One of these days, that thing's something's gonna go wrong. And, if you're going up, if you get behind another vehicle and you get too close to it, it'll automatically brake. But but it's got cameras in the front of it. One thing that's really neat, I like, is when you're backing up, it shows you your whole truck. Not just a backup camera. It shows you the whole truck. Now, how they do that, no idea. Shows you the whole truck moving, and it's like it's getting a shot from a drone or something. So it's really freaky. But I wasn't there when she picked it. She paid for the last thing, and she got insurance on it. They talked her into it. I would never have bought it, but it covers all of that mess for up to 150,000 miles. That's probably the best thing we bought on that thing. I don't like all that. So I like a truck. Turn it on. You can drive it. Stop it. I don't want my car talking to it. And she was driving it. We were going to church yesterday, and she went around a curve, and she said when she first started going that the truck would slow down going through that curve. But then she said it has learned that I like going through that curve at 60, so now it'll go through the curve at 60 without slowing down. I don't want my car learning nothing. You know what I'm saying? I don't want a car that learns stuff. I don't like AI, and I don't want it. I don't want my car learning anything. But it's like when we go over to North Point, when I come to North Point, I put my little thing on there to open the door. It says, "Welcome, Herschel." It's like, Owl. Y'all remember that show back there with the computer that went crazy on the spaceship? Hello, Al. Yeah, we're not. So effective communication is a big deal. You need to be able to communicate with your partner. You need to be able to talk with that other person. If you don't want to talk with them, why are you with them? Right? Well, you got a lot of money. All right. Still need to be able to communicate with them. You communicate your own needs, communicate your own wishes while you're respecting those of your partner. You need to be able to respect them. You need to be able to respect their needs and their wants and their desires out of life while you're communicating those with them. You know, I had a guy tell me in counseling not too long ago, you know, I talked to her, I told her the other day, man, we need to go out and eat or something. So just telling your spouse that it's time to eat, stuff like that, that's not what communication is, right? Communication is talking about those deep-seated things that we need to talk about. You know, talking about the kids, talking about the family, talking about, you know, the relationship, talking about all those kinds of things that we need to be able to communicate with. So effective communication is more than just talking a little bit. It's talking about stuff. One of the big things that I'm a big deal about too is honesty. You know, I told you guys I'm in recovery from lying, so I don't do a whole bunch of lying. If I'm telling you something, it's either the truth or it's what I perceive to be the truth. It may not be true, but I think it is. If I didn't think it was, I wouldn't be telling you that. And usually, if I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to have researched it and know a little bit about what I'm trying to talk to you. So just be honest. How many times does someone have to lie to you for you not to trust them?
I don't know. You're going to get kind of close.
Say it again.
I said, you're going to get kind of close.
Yes. Look, just and everybody would hail their finger. Yeah, just one time. If a person lies to you, one time and you know it, and you find it out, then you know trust is usually out the window. Because if you lie once, you'll lie again. There you go. And so, how many people in here lie?
I mean, what?
How many of us lie? Everybody lies. Everybody. So, but here's the deal: when I'm with my wife, when I'm with my spouse, I try as hard as I can. I want to tell her the truth, and I'm going to tell her the truth. Most of the time, when we communicate, we're telling each other the truth. So just be honest. Your actions align with your words. What you say is what you will do eventually. The thoughts and feelings you express need to be genuine, need to be real. If you don't like something, what should you do?
Stay away from it.
Well, stay away from it. That's a big deal. Yeah, if you don't like broccoli, don't eat broccoli. You know, I mean, just like that. But if you don't like something that's going on in your relationship, you should tell the person that's in your relationship with you. If your wife is doing something or your husband is doing something that you just don't like, you need to tell them, right? What if they don't like the fact that you told them that? They beat you up, they're going to beat you. No, not. We're not going to be in a relationship where one part of the relationship, one member in the relationship is going to beat up the other member, right? We're not going to do that. If you were in one of those relationships before, really sorry about that, but you have learned something, haven't you? We ain't doing that again. We're not going to do that again. You know, anybody ever stuck their finger in a light socket? All it takes is one time. Yeah, I was in my attic doing something with some electricity, trying to get it done. I had this big old screwdriver. I stuck that thing down there, went like that, and it went poosh. And I pulled it back, and it actually it blew a hole out of that screwdriver. So guess what I didn't do anymore? I didn't poke it back down on it, and I had it all wired together and all like that. Somebody, some smart aleck somewhere said, y'all flip the breaker on that there before you go up and do it. I said,
Our time to tell you. Now you tell you.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Yeah, I had put all that wire together. If you're a professional, you know how to do that. You wire all of that stuff together, and then you wrap a whole bunch of black tape on it, and it works, right? That's not how you're supposed to do it. But, and something would go, I don't remember what it was, but I had to move it, and I had stuck that screwdriver in there, and it popped it back out of there, man. And, I didn't do that anymore. I said, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get out of the attic, go down, I'm going to cut that paper off. Then I pulled it all back apart, and I put it in the little holes, put the little wire connectors and all of that stuff. And so that was 25 years ago, and the house hadn't burned down. So just be honest. Your thoughts and feelings you express need to be genuine. You need to be telling the truth. I'm going to tell you something. Here's the deal. All of us are liars. My wife dyed her hair one time, and she looked like who's that clown? Bozo the clown, orange hair. I mean, she really, and she said, and I looked at her and I said, not hardly anybody looks good with orange hair, honey, but you pull it off, you look good. So I lied like a dog to her, she looked terrible, horrible. But, every now and then we're going to do that, but usually when I'm talking to my wife, look, if I'm telling somebody something, it's the truth. If it's not the truth, then it was a mistake. I just don't lie. I don't do that. If I can help it. Usually, now, usually I'm going to be so sometimes it's hard when you get into one of those situations. We all lie, but I try my level best not to. I'm not going to do it. If I can do it, I'm not going to do it. I happen to suffer from perfectionism, and I'm a people pleaser and all of that stuff. So when my boss comes and says, "Can you do this?" Oh, yes. And sometimes that's not true, right? Sometimes it's just not true. So, but sometimes when I get into the midst of it, I don't know how to do it. So, anyway, just be honest. And then one of the big things when we're in one of these relationships is to practice intimacy. Feel close. Feel connected with your partner physically and emotionally. Here's the deal. When we're talking about intimacy, it's more than just a sexual thing. That's what we look at a lot of the times. It's just that physical thing. And look, do we need that physical thing in our lives? Absolutely. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that we need to have love and belonging. We need to have somebody who professes to love us. We need to have somebody that cares for us. We need to have that physical intimacy, because physical intimacy leads to what? I can't understand you when you go.
Internal intimacy.
What?
Internal intimacy.
Look, intimacy leads to procreation as well. Without physical intimacy between a man and a woman, we don't have no children, right? And we have to have children in order for us to continue to, have something to complain about, and to have the species continue. So, but we also look, instead of just that physical intimacy, we have emotional intimacy. That's when we are emotionally linked together. The Bible tells us that when we get married, when we have that relationship, two people become one person. So we're supposed to be emotionally that close to one. We are one person. So, the last thing on this positive stuff is this relationship green flag is self-confidence. We need to be confident in our relationship. You know, I pray every morning on the way in to be a self-confident person. I want to be confident, positive, spiritual person. That's who I am. I'm a powerful spiritual man of God. I'm confident and positive in who I am. That's who I want to be. I want to be confident in my relationship also. You know, like I said, my wife is going to go off on this ministry thing here before too long. She's going to go off with a bunch of other ladies. She's going to be gone 2 or 3 days. Am I confident enough in my relationship not to worry about that? Yeah, I am. And we need to be that confident in our relationship. We feel comfortable being confident in our relationship, but we also feel comfortable being yourself in your relationship. Now you can be who you are. I don't have to be on stage all the time in front of my wife. You know, I mean, she knows who I am. How long do you think that you are in an intimate relationship with a person before you feel comfortable enough to break wind in their presence?
No.
Huh?
I say,
It's usually for most normal people, Mr. Wright. For most normal people, it's about 3 months.
oh,
In about 3 months, we'll start pacing in front of our dearly beloved. Yeah, in about 3 months, we'll be able to be ourselves with our dearly beloved. Yeah, you know. So that's how you decide whether or not your relationship's on a good footing, whether or not you feel comfortable hooting in front of your the one you live, right?
if you're married, still,
You know that this is true. He said it. You know, at this stage, I ought to be at a place where I can use the bathroom with the door open. But do we do that?
that would.
You know, I don't. I don't do that. Look, I guess it's a habit. But even when I'm at my home by myself, I'm closing the bathroom door. You know, if we have a burglar, I don't want him come in and find me in the potty. You know, so it's like that. Now there are some things that we ought to be watching out for. Anybody here know what gaslighting means?
Yeah, I want to. Oh, definitely is.
What is that?
Gaslighting person. They were saying uh, you did something, but you didn't do it. They did it. They'll gaslight you.
Yeah, we hear a lot of that.
They'll blame you.
Yeah. If you go to school to be a politician, the first thing you have to learn is how to gaslight. Okay. So gaslighting is a type of manipulation that causes a person to doubt their own beliefs, sanity, or memory. Learning gaslighting warning signs can improve our resistance to that form of manipulation and make sure that we're in the right relationship. If you're in a relationship where someone is gaslighting you, is that a good relationship to be in?
Oh,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, we need to look. One of the things that we need to be very particular about who we allow ourselves to get into a relationship with, because here, you know, I don't believe in divorce. I think if you get in there, I think you should stay the rest of your life. But look, you should take some time to make sure that the person that you're about to hook yourself up with is the right one. You know, sometimes you can't tell, right? Sometimes you are completely dumbfounded at some point. This person shows their true colors and they turn out to be something you really didn't expect. You know, so yeah, usually after you've been married for 3 or 4 months, or you got them moved into your house, and they got your keys and your car and all of that stuff, and your bank account number and all of that kind of stuff, and then oh my God, yeah, you know. But if you have a period of time that you get to know that person, then you know it makes a lot of sense. So here's the deal. These are some of the things that a person will do that's a gaslighter. One of the things they'll do is denial. And not the type of denial that, we talk about being in denial, people saying they don't have a problem. I see that all the time because we know we all have problems. But this type of denial is when they do something, they just deny they did it. I hear that all the time. They do stuff. The gaslighter tells the victim an event or conversation didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way the victim remembers it. I never said that, or I never meant that, or that's not how it happened at all. So that's a gaslighter. You know what happened. You know they did that. You know they stole that money. You know they did this. You know they did that. But no, that didn't happen like that. And sometimes if they say it to you hard enough, you'll start to believe, you doubt your own sanity. Yeah. Now really, I don't want to be wrong. So I don't know if they did that or not. Ignoring or avoidance. The gaslighter will refuse to engage in conversation with the victim or addresses their concerns, just not going to talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. They can do some crazy stuff like turning up the volume on the television, leaving the house. I've seen that happen a lot. I have dealing with a couple right now where he has friends in Louisiana. And so when they had a little tiff, he'll go to Louisiana. So that's gaslighting. He doesn't want to talk about the situation. He doesn't want to get involved with that. So he'll run off, go to Louisiana for him. And last time he went was 3 days. And and he acts like nobody knows where he is, but she knows where he's going. But he goes over there. So ignoring it, avoiding the conversation. When he finally decided time to come back, he had to come back. He still had to face it, but he was still trying his best to gaslight that. And there's a thing called projection. What is projection? When I take my feelings, I put them on you. I'm angry, and I tell you you're angry. My wife, and she doesn't know that she does that. I don't believe, but she does do that. When she'll get angry about something, and then she'll tell me I got angry about it. That's a little weird. But I don't think my wife is gaslighting. I think my wife is crazy. Yes, I do. I think she's does. So the gaslighter accuses the victim of the very behavior in which they are engaging. Maybe you're the one who's hiding something. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe I think you're lying on me. Yeah. So that's a gaslighter. And look, I'm going to tell you, listen, politicians do it all day long. The Democrat's going to say it about the Republican going to say it about the Democrat, the Independent don't know what's going on in here. So they're all, well, you said that. No, you said that. No, you said that. My mama said you said it. So, and then, but I hear that all the time. They say, that person's a gaslighter. Okay. There's lots of gaslighters out there. And sometimes when, people will say, well, watch that person. They're a gaslighter. And we go, yeah, I've noticed that. And we don't even know what we're talking about. But this is what gaslighters do.
So if she's like, let's just leave, and I leave, and I call next day, like, hey, are we ready to come home? Well, why did you leave in the first place?
Yeah, that's kind of gaslighting, isn't it? Yeah. So where did he make his big mistake? No, call him the next day. You're gonna leave. So here's the deal. Then there's the big deal. This is what gaslighters will sabotage things. Yeah, I mean, if you see somebody that has not ever had a good relationship, but they finally find that one person, somebody is great, and then after 3 or 4 months, they start, they'll do something, sabotage the relationship.
That's the evaluation.
Yeah. The gaslighter undermines the victim in order to make them seem incompetent. They're going to sabotage them. Throwing away the victim's mail so they can't pay a bill on time. Well, that's crazy, huh? That's nuts. Yeah, throwing away a person's mail so they can't pay a bill on time. We had it. My wife doesn't throw away the mail, but she's got a big box, and she puts mail in this box, mail in that box. Mail in this box goes to the burn pile. Mail in that box. I guess she's going to look at it sometime or another. But they changed the way we've never missed a payment on our house, and they changed the way that they were going to receive it. So she had thrown we didn't know it for like months afterward, and so they sent us a little thing saying you need to pay for your house. So anyway, so she throwing away the victim's mail so they can't pay the bill on time, damaging the victim's car so they can't leave the house. Ever seen anybody do something ignorant like that? Yeah, pull something off the engine or let the air out the tires or some kind of crazy mess like that. So the other thing, or another thing, is distraction. They're going to do something to distract the person. The gaslighter interrupts the victim or tries to change the subject. Have you ever seen anybody doing something like that? Let's talk about your birthday. No. We want to talk about the fact that you're doing this. We want to talk about the fact that you said that. But let's talk about your birthday. Let's change the subject. Let's change the direction. Hey, can we go out and get something to eat? If you're a gaslighter and you use that type of terminology, you got my attention right off the bat, right? Yes. Let's go to Hamilton's. Let's go get some food. Well, let's go do that. So all they're trying to do is, instead of talking about that thing that we need to talk about, they're doing something to get them distracted from that, get them away from that. We're not going to do the important thing that we need to do. So, talk long enough for 2 people just to leave. Man, that's...
Well,
all right. Okay. Minimization or trivialization. So what does that mean? I'm just going to minimize it. I'm going to drop it down. I'm not going to be worth all that much. The gaslighter makes light of a serious situation or accusation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm accusing you of running around on me. You got a boyfriend on the side. You got a girlfriend on the side. Something's going on like that. And, okay, so that the gaslighter is going to minimize that. They're going to make it whatever. It was nothing. Oh, that was nothing. Yeah, that was somebody else. Yeah, I didn't do that. It's not a big deal anyway. It's not a big deal. I was over there, yes, I stayed 3 days, but it wasn't a big deal. Yes, they used drugs and alcohol at that house, but it's not a big deal. That's what's going on with this individual I was telling you about. He's going to the place in Louisiana, and they use drugs and alcohol. He's in recovery. So, it's a bad place for anybody in recovery to be. Right.
I'm going to start with Johnny and James.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
Yeah. Well, I didn't hear anything about that. Yeah, well, you're not invited. Okay. So we don't do that kind of stuff in a relationship. So the put downs don't need to be putting one another down. If you feel like you need to put your partner down, you don't need to be in that relationship. The gaslighter insults and degrades the victim so they come to doubt themselves. If you're in a relationship with somebody that's doing that, you need not to be there. You're an idiot. You have no clue what you're saying. I'm in a relationship with someone. Am I going to call them an idiot? Shouldn't be. If I care for that person, I empathize with that person, I sympathize with the situations in their life. I'm not going to be calling them stupid. I'm not going to be calling them an idiot. I'm not going to be calling them names.
My favorite word was stupid. I was like, stupid.
Oh, I'm ignorant of a whole bunch of stuff.
I was ignorant also.
Yeah, yeah. But you learn.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're that. You sound really crazy when you talk. Yeah, I've been married all these years. I don't believe I've ever done anything.
Just because they can't talk.
Right. It may be that. Yeah. All right. So the last thing we're going to look at is threats. You know, if you are in a relationship today that the other person in the relationship is threatening you, that's not a good, healthy relationship. What's the biggest threat we get?
Leave.
I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Okay. Okay. Yeah, leave. Yeah, don't. I'm not going to be in a relationship with somebody that's threatening.
I didn't want to leave, so I
Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's lots of things. So, and threats can be of all sorts of things. We could get threatened like we're going to get hit, we're going to get beat, all of that kind of stuff. That's a physical threat. And I don't want to be in a relationship where there's a physical threat. Because when somebody's making a physical threat, what are they trying to do? They're trying to scare you, they're trying to hurt you, they're trying to do all of these kinds of things, trying to control you. Okay, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to leave. I'd have somebody's ditty bag packed for me. Okay. No. You said you were leaving. Guess what's going to happen now? You're leaving. Okay. You're. Now, if somebody says that one time, I probably wouldn't kick them out. But if that's your mantra, you can go. We don't need to do that. The gaslighter threatens a negative outcome for not trusting them or their perspective or doing exactly what they want you to do. So if you can't see things my way, this relationship is over. Okay. You'll get the kids taken away if you keep saying that. I'm going to call CPS. Oh, all of that kind of craziness. At some point, look, we need to understand that relationships can be confusing. They can be complicated. They are life-changing events in our lives, right? They are. Whether they're a good relationship or a poor relationship, they're going to change your life. So what we need to be doing is looking at our relationship, and our goal for our group today was to learn a little bit about relationships and how that's going to affect my recovery when I get out of this place. The big deal that we need to do is take a look and see if I still want that relationship. Is that relationship salvageable? Is that relationship worth salvaging? Is that a person that I want to be committed to or in a committed relationship with? If I can say no to any of those things, I need to do something different. I will tell you this, and this is a big statement. Y'all hear this. My recovery is worth more than most of those people that I know. We talked about this the other day, but there are 8 billion people on the face of the earth. Right? And so you look at that one person and you say, well, there's nobody else on the face of the earth just like her or just like him. Well, thank God for that. We don't need any more of those people. Right? We don't need any more like that guy. We don't need any more like that girl. We're going to have to learn, maybe we have to learn how to live without that person. And here's the deal. Having studied codependency really deeply, that's not that hard to do. Living without that person is not that hard to do. And while we're in that disease, while we suffer from that disease of codependency, we often think it is. That's the only person on the face of the earth. You know, you listen to all those old rock and roll songs, you're the only one on the face of the earth for me. When you left, you took my heart. All of that kind of crazy crap. No, that's true. We can't get over that other person. So, say it again?
That's those crying in your beer.
Yeah, crying in your beer song. But going into the Thanksgiving holidays and then the Christmas holidays, sometimes we get a little morose. Sometimes we get a little bit down in the dumps because of it. But here's the deal. We're going to be all right. We're going to be okay. We're going to have turkey anyway. Right? It's going to be a good day. And next year, we're going to be with the ones we love. And it may not be the same ones that we have today. It may be somebody entirely different when we're in a healthy relationship. Because if the relationship we're in right now is not healthy, we don't need to be in that relationship. All right then. Thank you. I will be over there after a while, ladies.